Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this SGENA webinar, Hot Topics in Endoscope Reprocessing. We've two very good speakers lined up for you tonight to give talks on prevention of damages to endoscopes and sustainability in endoscopy, and another talk on periodic microbiology surveillance, how to implement it in daily routine. Now, before we introduce our first speaker, I'll introduce myself and my colleague will introduce herself, and we'll do a quick poll. So my name is Sean Connolly. I'm an advanced nurse practitioner here in the endoscopy unit in the Mater Hospital in Dublin. I'm at the Society of the Secretary of the Irish Society of Endoscopy Nurses, and I'm also a member of the SGENA Education Working Group. And I'll hand you over.
And I am Hilde Willekens. I'm working in the University Hospital in Leuven, Belgium, as an endoscopy nurse and a clinical trial assistant. And I'm also a member in the education working group from SGENA, and I represent SGENA in the ESNO. So I think we can start with the profession. So are you a nurse in the endoscopy staff? Are you a nurse endoscopist or a clinical nurse specialist? Are you a nurse teacher, a physician? Are you in the hygiene staff of a microbiologist? Or maybe from the industry of others? So you can avoid now. Okay.
So at the moment, yeah, we've 53% are endoscopy staff, or another 13% are nurse endoscopists, and we've hygiene staff in industry. So it's about 38 registrants at the moment, but we've hopefully have more join us throughout the presentations. So I'll introduce our first speaker, and I'd like to introduce Daniela Schroeder from Fujifilm Healthcare Europe. Daniela has a background of specialist nursing in anesthesiology and intensive care medicine, but she's currently working as a clinical and hygienic specialist for the last 12 years with Fujifilm. And Daniela is going to give us a talk on the prevention of damage and sustainability in endoscopy.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction, and a warm welcome also from my side to our webinar. Thank you for joining us. And today, yes, I worked as a nurse in my former life, and now I'm already 12 years with Fujifilm, and now I'm hygiene. Yeah. These are the topics for today from my presentation: prevention of damages and sustainability in endoscopy. Oh, there's a wrong time on it. Sorry for that. So what kind of effects can cause some damages on the endoscope? We have a lot of effects like mechanical, thermal, chemical influence, deposits and reactions of chemicals, reactions of medical products, and all of those can cause this kind of damages: defects, leaks, surface changes, discoloration, deposits, restrictions, or hygienic problems. If I would like to go in detail, but we don't have the time for that. So I just touch it a little bit, and I hope that you can take something with you in your hospital. Let's talk firstly about the damages because of mechanical effects. For example, cable and compression, crushing and bites, cable breaks due to wrong storage, surface channel shock damages. These are the cable compressions. These are really a real situation out of our endoscopy daily work. So for example, as you can see here, the tower is too close to the physician, all the way around. The physician is too close to our tower, so that we have this special angle, 90 degrees, and this can cause some damages. This is a twist during the examination. What I heard from our technician yesterday, also the channels can collapse at that moment, and then you are not able to work anymore. Even the suction doesn't work anymore. Every one of us is tired during the day, so this physician is still standing, but I always understand if they want to sit down but then this angle can appear, and this could be a risk as well. During reprocessing as well, depending on the table, on if it's then really adjustable or not, you can find this angle too. And all those situations have some effects on our material, a lot of stress, so that we can find this material changes, even damages. Another mechanical effect, brazing, crushing, and bites. I think this won't happen that often, but what can happen to our endoscope? Closing the door of drying cabinets or AER without taking care of the insertion tube. This is sometimes in between, depending on the baskets and depending on how it's then hanging on or connected in the drying cabinet. This can happen to our material. Don't worry, this will still work, but maybe at one point it will become more crushy and then it's out of order. But from the very beginning, it will still work. Cable breaks due to wrong storage. We all have a kind of, let me tell you, endoscopic traffic jam. We know that it's not possible to clean them all at one time. And if there are a lot of rooms and a lot of procedures, we get this kind of traffic jam. This can cause some damages on the scope, but also the wrong or storage with not a special or dedicated holder for the endoscopes. Especially in our country, in Germany, in my country, it's not mandatory to have a drying cabinet. So we all have this kind of cabinets. So it's becoming more and more the drying cabinet. But if we then go with that one, it would be nice to fix not only this one, but also the insertion tube with this kind of, I think, fixation stuff. Maybe more like a snake, just to avoid this contact to the bottom of this cabinet. This is the most sensitive part, therefore we should take care of it. Surface damages, that's also real life. I found it once in one hospital. Everything together for pre-cleaning in the sink, even the sharp materials. It's not one point that our endoscope has a higher risk, but also yourself as a staff or as a worker or an employee in reprocessing, or this one. Everything is carried from the procedure room to the reprocessing, everything together, and then it's separated. But this is a high risk too. Even with to carry everything together, even the valve have metal parts, which has some influence or some attraction on our material of the endoscope. And this can result in this kind of appearances. Sorry. Channel damages, leak, which then can cause a leak due to defective instruments. Or, for example, we had once a production charge of brushes. They were really kinked really soon, and then by withdrawing, they really perforated the entire working channel. Sharp instruments that were opened too early or retracted too late, or advancing, pushing by both power against the resistance of the angled endoscope. This can cause damages, leaks. Even this shock or impact damages, here you can see that we have some broken parts on it. Even this endoscope will work properly. And maybe you have some cracks or some scratches on the screen, but it will still work properly. If you have an unfortunate situation with this short shock, which means just shortly touch another surface, processor, or the environment in the procedure room, it can happen that this lens system, we call that it's the video chip, can have some damages. There are 5 lenses glued together. And that means that you have some, that there, especially here, you have some breaks. It's not visible and remarkable in the leakage test because it's too small. Even bubbles by the visible check in the leakage test won't see it. But what you then will see is this kind of blurry image or black spots. Black spots we can dry. We have a special oven in our service center, so it's possible to be dried. But in a very strong situation, this moisture which came in just due to the damage on here can really break the glue, everything glued together, and then you see like a wave in the image. If the physician is able to work, okay, it's fine, but the moisture will become more, and then you have some problems. Another point with shock damages, we all know the situation in the AER, especially with bronchoscope. If there is no fixation, you will have some like trouble in the AER, and this will mean also a bump. This is the right word. Against the metal parts of the basket, and then you will have another damage. Beside this, we will have an insufficient drying if it's then not really attached, or we have a kinked tube, or it's not attached correctly. This is beside of this. All lesions, even if this endoscope can work properly, means we have a micro lesion on the material, which is always a germ reservoir, and this is a high risk for patients to get an infection. Or the special situation, leaky endoscope, the water is in the optical system, which needs then to go for repair, high costs of repair. To avoid the black spots, not due to damages, but also due to other reasons, I would like to motivate you not to leave the endoscope in the AER overnight or over the weekend. Please keep it out immediately after the cycle is finished. This is a wet area, and due to diffusion, the moisture will go in, and then we will find also black spots in the screen. If you don't have a drying cabinet with single ventilation of all channels, please store the endoscope in a vertical position. I hope that the gravity will work and all drops will come out. Maybe not, but it's the first situation to motivate the endoscope to become more dry. And please, if you use a kind of vacuum system just to make it more, that you can really store it for a longer time, please read the instruction for use. Once I saw that there was a lot of moisture inside. This can be avoided. These are all the topics to avoid mechanical effects. Keep always a finger in between, because the optical system at the tip of the scope is the most sensitive part. If you have always a finger in between, there is no contact to other points. Avoid knocking and free dangling. So please, better to fix it also in the drying cabinet. Avoid crushing during all the procedures and reprocessing and treatments. Close the door carefully. Don't insert against resistance. Straighten the endoscope if necessary. Sharp instrument also for your protection. And as we know, please perform a leak test always before starting the reprocessing cycle. This is for sure. Everyone is doing that, I'm pretty sure. And what I always would like to point out, and this is also what we know, is a good communication within the examination team. Thank you so much for this communication. High temperature means thermal effects. It could be high temperature or low temperature. If we have a look on AER, we have two different chemicals. One works with higher temperature, is glutaraldehyde, mostly used in Germany. I know it's not everywhere available in all the other European countries. Or peracetic acid, which works with a lower temperature. What I saw once, also the detergent might need a special or a dedicated temperature. And in one country, they try to prepare the detergent solution and they switch on the tap water, and it was, I think, more than 50 or 60 degrees. So they boiled the endoscope. This could be a thermal effect. So we had black spots in it. Or you have this kind of accessories with physical properties like laser, APC, or cryoprobes. These are with higher temperature. This one really with a low temperature, which can then cause a kind of explosion in the channel if you don't move it correctly or use it correctly. So premature activation, too close to the distal tip, for example, it can burn holes or it can damage the channel due to the low temperature. So here is again the measures, a good communication within the examination team, and of course proper professional handling. What I would like to tell you as well is to ground all electrical units. So you have this special tube. In our case, it's yellow-green, and there's a special connector just to avoid also interferences in your picture during the examination. influence of water, limescale deposits, or discoloration like silicates, fluorides, which means that we have a milky white to gray appearance, or also rainbow. This can be due to all these minerals in the water. So I would like to ask you to work with deionized water. What I heard yesterday during our training, that we have also, that this one can also work like a magnet, so that all dirt and organic material can stick to it better than before. Doses of chemicals, so again, another one with a reaction on the surfaces of the endoscope, the concentration or the contact time, or undissolved crystals, especially, for example, by using peracetic acid, which is provided as a powder, and which needs to then prepared carefully by curling everything around. And if you then, it's time consuming, I know. And if you then have some crystals remaining on the floor, ground of that sink, and you put in the endoscope directly, it will have direct contact to these crystals, and this is a high concentration. So we can find this peeling. Or you will find some incompatibilities between the chemicals, or using, instead of detergent, there are some hospitals or some departments, I saw that in my in the past, they use some surface disinfectant tissues. Okay, I know it's easy, it's ready to use, easy to prepare, but unfortunately not compatible with our endoscopes. Peeling due to peracetic acid or a surface disinfectant, and this could appear when you have different products. One is on base of amines and the other one aldehydes. Only one drop is enough just to get this kind of reaction. It looks like caramel, and it's not easy to remove. So the best is we have a correct choice of the chemicals. For example, all products from one manufacturer, then you know that they are compatible. We need to have a look in the instruction for use in regards of doses, contact time, temperature, and preparation. And not only the chemicals, but also from endoscope manufacturer side and AER side. And sometimes, or in a lot of cases, an intermediate rinsing could be really necessary, also to avoid foam in the machine due to the detergent, which has a lot of Tenside inside. Another point are the medical products in endoscope becoming more and more. You know, all the defoaming agents like Simeticon or Dimeticon, hemostasis products like powder, gel, or spray. In chromoendoscopy, the dyes, different ones, methylene blue, for example, X-ray, contrast, and ERCP, and the lubricants. Let's start with the Simeticon. Simeticon, not all ingredients are really installable. They will remain as a fixed part. If you mix it up, it's not a solution, it's just a mix. And if you then wait a few minutes, you will find two phases in the container. So the water here and the not soluble ingredients here on the floor, on the ground. So even if there are not really, the endoscope is then not easy to be dried, and it's difficult to remove. And if you then go the way, oh yes, you can see here whitish parts in this channel. Another point is it can support the growth of biofilm. And if you then applicate the Simeticon in a higher concentration, more than 0.5%, then also not directly over the working channel, but in the irrigation system, you will have a problem, because this irrigation system is mostly connected to the jet channel, and this jet channel you can't brush. So the Simeticon will remain in this channel. Also, there are a few hospitals really applicating this Simeticon over the water bottle and the air-water channels. That means that you have a milky appearance on the image, because this water out of the water bottle is just to clean the lens. So it doesn't make sense. Lubricants. not kind of Vaseline, no oils, please. Try to find the right lubricant, which is not able to swell, to have a swelling on the material, and which doesn't have this kind of wrinkling effects on it. What I would say in that moment, also different creams. You use maybe a cream just to protect your skin, and you, of course, you will have then some gloves on it, but this cream might have some contact to the glove, and it will be able to also dissolve fluorides out of the glass, which then has contact to the endoscope. Or another situation, the patients, they are prepared for colonoscopy with a kind of product. They need to go to toilet several times and they don't feel comfortable. So they try to do their best to feel much more comfortable, and they use cream, which has paraffin inside. And this is the reaction on paraffin on our endoscope. Yeah, please remove it completely. It's not easy, I know, but try to do your best. Thank you. My next topic. Yeah, we talk about sustainability. This is not really easy because this will have some good influence on everything, and it will refer to a lot of parts. So what I heard in general, it refers to the coexistence of biosphere and human civilization by including environment and economics and society. But now we would like to expand it by including politics and culture as well, and also all the manufacturer, all the industry is talking about more points than only one, and they try to, or they want also to include the work environment, just to make sure that we don't have this big stuff turnover. So also this working atmosphere could be part of the sustainability. In 2022, ESGE and ESGINA, as a position statement, published this article talking about green endoscopy. So that means to advocate sustainable industry or green purchasing. Purchasing just might be you find a company which has a better delivery route, for example. Green endoscopy should be included in education, for example, to have as a topic, or maybe go back to webinars, not to have this travel, or a hybrid situation. Green quality means a high quality endoscopy just to avoid unnecessary treatments. It should be included in clinical and endoscopic management. Maybe we can think about, it's really necessary to have this biopsy sampling, or can we reduce the weight at that moment? And also to include in endoscopy logistics. We can think about sustainable architecture, for example, better protection against heat, maybe have another air condition with sensors, something like that. And we need to think about, or to rethink about the use of single-use products. Is it really necessary? Do we need to open all the packages, or can we just prepare it in the back? Here are some examples. Why not to use reusable caps, reusable clothes? Why not to go to work by bike or public transportation? Why not to watch telemedicine? That's what we had when I was young, and now you go with Google or another searching machine in the internet, and you will have a chat with a real physician to get the answer. Or why not to have virtual trainings and switch out all electrical stuff at the end of the day? This could be already a point in sustainability. There are 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. But in total, we have 5: reduce, reuse, recycle, research, and rethink. Reduce weight, reuse some material. For example, Ampuva water can be used for cleaning. Recycle, just waste separation. Research, is there another way to get a diagnosis? And rethink, do we need all the material? I picked out once, waste. In Germany, long time ago, there was an initiative to count and to to see what kind of weight or of waste we have in all medical facilities. Here is the number of facilities, some different numbers because two different sources. So let's talk about this one here, 309,000 tons of waste without a special requirements from an infection prevention perspective. This is the same as the number I wrote here of elephants, just to get a picture of it. And 900,000 tons of waste with a special requirement from an infection prevention perspective, pharmaceuticals, body parts, waste of veterinary care, cytotoxic, sharp objects. So the number is really tons of chemicals. This is what we produce in the hospital over a year, or in Germany, in all medical facilities. So they broke it down. I also found several sources. One source said 9 kilo per patient per stay. This is from 1999. That was about 20 kilo waste per patient per stay on average. But I think due to the fact that endoscopy took over a lot of surgical procedures, we will have much more, around 25. And if we then have a look into the bigger hospitals, they also perform more complex procedures like ERCP or whatever. It's much more. Yeah. So this is just out of my old hospital. I worked for a long time in the as a nurse in anesthesia. So this is the operation theater, and we had more than 5 of these bins of waste, and they were all full after a procedure. So just to give you an example, and this is all the disposable stuff and maybe also the sterile stuff, which is then used all the time. Where it does make sense to have a disposable one is in self-protection products and suture products. Where it doesn't make sense as well is in critical medical products, even from ABC. These are products used in ERCP. It really does make sense just to avoid infections for the patient. This is again the Spalding classification. I saw that Mr. Spalding was able to create it already in 1939. Somebody told me 1956, I don't know. So, but early. We are here with our high-level disinfection because of our endoscope is a semi-critical B product. But what I would like to talk about is in case or in regards of using disposable ones is that one. Critical medical products from A to C, which really can cause an infection in patient. At the weekend, I know that every one of you needs to go just for cleaning, for example, the bronchoscope, which are going to be used for lavage on the intensive care unit. Only to avoid, in regards of sustainability, your travel to the hospitals, it could make sense to go with a disposable one. And there is no official confirmation, but it could be possible to use it not only one on the same patient, of course. Then we can avoid waste as well. This makes sense as well. Sometimes it's not easy to clean the valves because there's not a really validated process in AER. And in our instruction for use, we explain really properly and in detail how to clean it. But we would like to go with a manual disinfection, but I know, no, it's not possible in the hospital. So maybe to switch to disposable ones, also in optical flushing system or in an irrigation system. This can be used all the whole day. So maybe that could be a good idea. In endoscope, only I talked about the exceptions. I would go with this reusable endoscope in the daily routine, just because of the better resolution, more features and functions like light modes or zoom function. You don't need a second monitor. You have already your system available in your procedure room. You can reduce or just avoid waste. And also, what about the cost of the disposables and the storage room? So therefore, I would go with a reusable one. But for the following conditions must be met. There are no particular risk for the patient in case of immune suppressed situation. we need to reprocess the endoscopy directly after the use, so that needs to be sure. And we need to follow high-level disinfection by following the validated process described in our instruction for use or your validated process. And you need the best structural preconditions, so suitable facilities. This is you. That means to you also what I said before. This is a challenge. You need to follow all the guidelines and norms, international and national ones, and recommendations. Robert Koch, always recommendations, but like law, manufacturer ours, then from the chemical manufacturer and AER. And that is everything you need to take into the account. This is really a challenging position. What can we do as an industry to contribute sustainability? We try to work with renewable energies and energy saving measures, recycling. Yeah, sometimes with the material it should be possible. Optimization of our transport routes, it's difficult. All our endoscopes are produced in Japan, and from Japan to here, and now with not crossing over the Russia area. So at that moment, we don't have an optimization of the transport road. Waste separation could be still interesting. Recycling of material. Oh, I did a double, sorry. And reduction of packing. Yes, we try to really reduce the packing, but in case of sterilized products, we need a double package. This is for sure. So just the size of the package can be reduced. And we try to do our best for our team. Safe working conditions, for example, education, transparent communication, partnership. And this is something you can have in your hospital as well. We already talked about cell saturation in a hospital. Energy efficient buildings such as air condition and so on are already mentioned. Waste reduction, of course, I know exactly that there are a lot of hospitals are on the way to do so. And there is a big one in the middle of Germany. They already changed a lot. You can find it in the internet, optimized consumption and regional supply chains. Why not to go by job bike? It's also provided in our company, so happy about that. Employee training is always nice, and team organization, health promotion. And my most important thing is good working conditions and atmosphere. Otherwise, you will always change your job, and it couldn't be in case of sustainability. It's so important, and the target is green fingerprint, and we are all responsible, and we are part of the green team. This I found in the Netherlands on Monday, but I know several hospitals do the same. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Daniela. I just check for some questions. No, so that's very interesting. Obviously, we're all very interested in keeping our scopes as healthy and as clean for our patients. It's very interesting. So what would you see as the most common cause of damage?
Oh, I think the most are the shock damages, because it's always, you are always moving with the endoscope, and even if you then prepare everything at the tower, there is sometimes a protection on the distal tip, but sometimes, because we all know we are always in trouble, we have a lot of stress, and maybe this is then dangling around, have some contact directly to the environment. I think this is the most. Yeah.
And we also, I was very interested about the paraffin-based creams, because we always say to patients, you know, if it's a bit sore down there, put on some barrier cream. Is there any one without paraffin that
I think if you have a look on it, yes, but they are more expensive, and I don't think that the most of the patients have a look on the ingredients. I won't do the same, so therefore maybe we can find a product which then can be recommended by the different hospitals, but it's then also a national thing. We have German products, the same, you have the Irish ones. But and then you really need to read the small written ingredient. Oh, it's really a challenge.
And then the sustainability of very interested in that, and I was invited to give a talk on it this year, but by SGENA in Hungary, and so very interesting. And obviously, there's things we can do, and we're doing here in our hospital is the paper, definitely, and the packaging and recycling that, and even the hospital itself have got in by doing the lighting. So, you know, the auto lights go off and stuff like that. But it's interesting about the instruments, the biopsy forceps, the injection needles, stuff like that, because industry and infection control would say we shouldn't go to single use. So it's then how do we recycle those? And in the UK, there is a company that will now take them. So some hospitals are using it. So they will recycle biopsy forceps and injection needles and guide wires, which is great. But we're obviously haven't got that in Ireland. So have you come across that?
No,
No.
I would be happy. So maybe I can suggest it to one of the new of our companies and our
it's a particular recycling company. So they would take it away and decontaminate them like a.
But I need to ask the hospital, so I will let you know.
Yeah, very good. There is one question here from Elizabeth. Does glycerol damage the endoscopes, surfactant, like paraffin?
I need to ask a chemical specialist, but in my opinion, no. I haven't seen that, but it was always paraffin if I found that in case I found this kind of appearances on the endoscope. Yeah.
Okay, great. Have you any questions, Hilda? Or
yeah, Daniela, we have an agreement with the hospital hygiene staff that we can use 1 millimeter of Simethicone per liter of rinse water. Is that acceptable in your opinion?
1 milliliter of how much rinse water?
In 1 liter.
In 1 liter is it's how many? Now I need to calculate which is the percent. It's 1%. No, it's 0.1%, I guess. So yeah, of course. Even if it's a little bit more, it's better to have a look on which channel you're going to use. So only via the working channel. This is my message.
Okay.
And I know, for example, when I worked in the endoscopy department, it was not long, and it's a long time ago. I didn't measure the amount of Subsimplic I did in the container. That was my measurement. So, it was too much, I guess. It was too much, but it was always applicated via the working channel. So, and that was the better way.
Yeah. Okay. I think we can go to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Ulrike Beilenhoff. She is a registered nurse and a specialist education in endoscopy nursing. She is tutor in specialist education of endoscopic nurses and currently working as self-employed as a nurse teacher, a teacher, and external assessor at endoscopy specialist education courses in Heidelberg, Munich, Cologne, and Berlin in Germany. She is chief editor of the German Journal of Endoscopy Nurses, and she is the scientific secretary of SGENA. So I think it's a lot of things.
It's enough, Hilde. Yes, but thank you very much for the nice introduction. So my topic is periodic microbiological surveillance. That is really a hot topic, and I would like to focus on the implementation daily routine. So I'm not a microbiologist, but I would like to have a look at that from the nurse's perspective. So we know that we have endogenous infections when we have, especially when we transfer germs to other parts of the human body where they don't belong to. But what we are really afraid of are the exogenous infections when we get microorganisms from the previous patient, from the environment, or even from the hands of the staff. So, and then especially our endoscopes and also our accessories and our hands are the carriers for that. And therefore, we would like to have also our endoscopes really well reprocessed. So when I have a look at the microbiological surveillance, I would like to check my process. I produce an really clean endoscope. That is my end product. And I would like to see how it works. And I would like to show that my cycle is really working. And this can also be part of the performance qualification during the validation of washer disinfectors. With the microbiological surveillance, I also can see I can also identify possible weaknesses or mistakes which are done during the reprocessing. I can also identify defects from on my endoscope, which can be a source of infection. And when I see that and identify that, then I can of course establish improvements and corrections. So there is a lot of data available about about microbiological surveillance, and there are a lot of studies available, and the rate they found varies between 0.4 till nearly 50%, and that was a German study nearly 24 years ago. But you see there is an average of contaminations, and we do not really have zero contaminations. There are also a lot of countries where microbiological surveillance is well established, and France is one of these countries. And here you see data from France, and that are very impressive data, which show the microbiological surveillance between 2004 and 2021. And you see, interestingly, that for gastroscopes, colonoscopes, and duodenoscopes, the rate is really decreasing. And for that, you really see that microbiological surveillance can also improve your reprocessing cycle and quality. So people seem to learn from that. But on the other hand, we see that we have also to focus on the bronchoscopes and on the EOS scopes. In the past, or in the last 15 years, we really focused on duodenoscopes, but we also have to train our staff how to reprocess echoendoscopes or EOS scopes and bronchoscopes correctly. We have still ESG GINA guidelines from 2007, and they clearly show that there are a variety of countries in Europe which already have microbiological surveillance established. And this guideline is under update at the moment and will be ready next year. Here you see on the map that there are a lot of green countries, and these countries are countries which already established an increased method of sampling. And this can either be the flush brush flush method or an intensive flushing with friction, what France is doing. All over Europe, the frequency really varies, and there are countries which just sample once a year, but there are also countries which sample on a regular basis, for instance, quarterly. And France, for instance, sample a high risk, so-called high risk endoscopes, or they identify duodenoscopes as high risk endoscopes, and therefore they do it monthly. Michel Alpha also did a nice review on all the different different guidelines and studies published in English, and she nicely showed that there is a big variation of methods of the liquid, of the interpretation, and the culturing. And Lionel Pinault also showed that the different methods have different sensitivity for the different microorganisms, and this really depends on the solution which is used, on the sampling method, if neutralizer is used, and also the time of transport. And you see here for the Australian, for instance, there is they do not find so much germs, and in comparison to the others. It is also clear that when that the solution you use has also an impact on the microorganisms you later find. And so there is also the recommendation to use neutralizer, because the disinfectant which is just left on the endoscope can also, let's say, kill the microorganisms later in your sampling solution. So that seems also to have an impact. In Germany, we also checked this increased sampling method with this flush brush flush method. And you see here that if you use this, you can really clean the tube, and that are channels, endoscope channels. So that seems to have an effect, that if you use an increased sampling method, that you have a more sensitive method. And we did that not only in the lab, we also tested that method with a field study, and went to different departments and tested all kind of endoscopes, including bronchoscopes. And these endoscopes were used for glutaraldehyde and also persidic acid cycles. And the study clearly showed that if you just flush once, you have just 6% of positive results. If you brush it, then you have 16%, and if you combine it, then you have 22%. And that is also what the Dutch studies, or also the French studies, showed. So the increased sampling method seems to be very effective. But there is still discussions in the guidelines or in the different committees, and I will come to that later. What should we do? Do we just flush suction with friction, or should we do flush brush flush? Also, the volume is not clear at the moment, which how many milliliters should be used for each channel, and it is clear that it cannot be a general statement. It has to be adapted to the volume of the channel. So you really have to have a look at the different endoscope you want to sample. And then you can also use a saline with and without neutralizer. And as I showed you, it also depends when you if you just sample with neutralizer, or if you add the neutralizer later. There are also other solutions like Tenside with like Tween 80, what you can also add. So there are a lot of variations, and there is also with the culturing, the discussion, filtration or centrifugation, and the trend is really to filtration. If we want to sample an endoscope, we really need to know how the architecture of the endoscope is. Which kind of channels does the endoscope have? And with this nice color, you clearly see where the different channels go. But if hygiene stuff is coming to my endoscopy unit, I should not allow them to work alone. From my personal perspective, microbiological surveillance should always be done in combination with hygiene stuff and with endoscopy stuff, because we know how our channels, which kind of channels an endoscope has. And if I have an EOS scope, which I want to sample, I also have to take into account the different positions of the valves. And that is also very important to get access to all the channels. So if I have a look at the time and frequency, we have periodic intervals, and the majority of the guidelines says at the moment that each endoscope should be sampled at least once a year. Sorry. And then you have, you should take into account that you have from each product, endoscope product family, the different endoscopes sampled, and that is just an example: gastroscope as a product family 1, or bronchoscope as a product family 3. And if you want to sample, you should not take the endoscope directly from the washer disinfector and then sampling. This can be done in validation processes. But if you do a periodic sample, then you should store the endoscope for at least 12 hours to give the microorganisms a little bit time to grow, and then you have a chance to find them. You can also test the endoscope after a maximum storage time. If you have if you think you have an outbreak or a suspected infection, then you should sample immediately. And in this case, you have really to separate all the channels and cannot have a pooled method, and I come to that later. You might also have special situations when you get new endoscopes or lawn endoscopes, and also repair endoscopes, where with a risk assessment you can identify, is it necessary to have microbiological surveillance or not? And this is also under discussion. So if we want to sample, we need a clean working surface, it's a clean environment. And this can be a clean endoscopy room where is no risk of recontamination. And as I said, I need 2 persons to do the sampling, one for the documentation and assistance, and 1 person who really do the sampling. And there are discussions, is it enough just to do it with freshly disinfected hands and a clean gown, or should you do it with sterile gloves and a gown? I would take the second opportunity, because then I really avoid any risk of contamination or secondary contamination. With the sampling, we usually start with the swabbing, and you have to identify the critical parts of your endoscope, and this has to be identified per type of endoscope. So I can sample the distal end, and if I have an elevator mechanism, I definitely go behind the elevator niche. I can also have a look at the wheels, at the different valve cylinders, and with EOS scopes, I also go into this niche of the balloon fixation. And I do that with a sterile swab, and then I put that into a transport medium. With the sampling, I have different channels, and I would start with the air-water channel, and I flush that, and I will show that in a minute. And then I have a look at the complex biopsy instrument suction channel, and here I can use these increased method like flush brush, flush or flush suction with friction and flush, and the auxiliary channel can only be flushed again. So I can only use this this brushing method with these channels which can be brushed. As I said, I can pool the samples when I have a routine testing, and I separate that when I have positive results and I want to resample the endoscope again, or if I have an outbreak or a suspicious infections. When I want to sample the channels, I have 3 options to do this. I can do it with a direct flush of the channels, like it is shown here, and I can also use cleaning adapters or adapters to get access to the channels, or I can use the endoscope tower. So if I want to use the direct flushing in some type of endoscopes, I can directly connect a syringe via a Luer lock or a Luer adapter. I can also use a long cone adapter to get access to the channel. But even if I use this, it's not enough just to put a syringe here on the biopsy port. I have to ensure that I really rinse the entire length of the channel. With the bronchoscopes, it's quite easier. In order to do so, I often have to block the valve entrances to make sure that nothing is coming out here. And with the cleaning adapters, I can use if I want to use sterile adapters, I can sterilize the cleaning adapters. So I have no risk of contamination, but there are also single-use adapters available. If I use these cleaning adapters, I definitely have to use these channel blocker. And the problem with this channel blocker, depending on the type, it can happen that you might lose liquid here and drops come out here. And in that case, you can also use the valves to block the channels. But then you need a second hand, a second person brings the valve into that position that you can really rinse the channel from the umbilical cord. And this is just a picture how it looks like. And you need the second person really to put the distal tip into this container and to press the valves. So the third option is to use the tower. So I connect the endoscope to the endoscopy tower, use also the water bottle and also the suction machine. Between the suction and the endoscope, I put a trap I usually use for the bronchoalveolar lavage during the bronchoscopy. And the first point is that I flush the air-water channel, and I show you this later in a short film. And then I flush the suction channel. And the second step is then that I brush the suction channel, and then I flush again the suction channel. And I always collect the liquid in that trap. And the last step is then the auxiliary channel if an endoscope has this. I can use my sterile single-use valves. If I use reusable valves, I use it in this condition. I would use it also for the procedure. And then I put everything in one container that I put a pooled sample to the, that I send a pooled sample to the lab. So that is just a film to show you how it can look like. You first do the swabs from the critical points, and you see the nurse doing that has sterile gloves and a sterile coat. We have a sterile covering of the table that we really avoid any secondary contamination. And you also have a swab from the distal tip. And if you have a duodenoscope, you really have to take to make sure that you go behind the elevator. Then you fix the valves you usually use for the endoscope, but you also need the cleaning valve in order to make sure that you can also rinse the air channel. So the first thing is you switch on the light source, you press the water valve and you rinse with that the water channel, and you collect the water here, or the saline here in this container. If you want then to rinse the air channel, you switch it to the cleaning valve, and you press the valve and you rinse the air channel and also collect the liquid in that container. So that is the first step. Then you want to suck, you want to flush the suction instrument channel. For that, we have here a liquid saline or neutralizer, and you suck through the entire endoscope and you collect the liquid in the container. Switch off the suction machine, put the liquid in the other container, and then you can brush the biopsy channel. In the study we did in Germany, we insert the brush in that way. We would use also our endoscopic accessories, and therefore we brush this one. The brush is not sterile, but it is in that condition that we can use it for this purpose. We tested it in a lab, and there were no germ growth. The brush is cut off with a sterile scissor, and then you take off the brush. And then you do the second flush. Again, with sucking liquid through the entire channel, collected in this trap, and then you put it again into the main container. So the last channel which is left is the auxiliary channel. You have these adapters you usually use for the endo washer, and this is very easy to connect. And then you add that as well. So you have a pooled sampling, and with that you send that to the lab. So the culturing methods are also under discussion, and there is a common understanding that the sampling liquid should be filtrated, and the entire that you really filtrate the entire volume you get, and then you have different non-selective growth, non-selective media to let the germs grow. And then you have, then you do the identification of the colonies. This is also under discussion, and the question is, do we want to have a quantitative? Yes, we want to have a quantitative result. And for Germany, the alert level is 20 CFU per endoscope, and the action level is 100 CFU, because we have a pooled sampling. If you want to separate that, then you can have the separation per channel. We also want to learn from the indicator germs, so the germs we find, because that gives you an idea where the source is. If we find germs which belong to the gut, then it is the problem might be insufficient cleaning, disinfection, or you use the wrong brushes, you do not clean properly. If you find water germs like Pseudomonas aeruginosa, then you might have a problem with the rinsing or the drying. And if you find hygiene relevant germs like Staphylococcus, then the problem might be your staff hygiene or an insufficient storage. So the germs you find give you an idea where the bad boy is sitting, what mistakes were done, where the problem is. So I said there are a lot of discussions at the moment, and there are a lot of variations. I showed you the studies and the data from the different studies and the different guidelines. So our aim is really to harmonize it. And at the moment, two global groups are working on that. That is one ISO group, which is at the moment working on a sampling and culturing for reusable thermolabile flexible endoscopes. And as I said, the ESG and SGENA guideline group is also working on a position statement for microbiological surveillance. And our idea is really to harmonize that and to have a common understanding and global recommendations. And these two groups are communicating at the moment and balancing the recommendations at the moment. Thank you very much.
We have two questions. Do you use a machine when you're doing the brush flush? So like the Aqua Typhoon.
Yeah, for the sampling, so
Yeah.
for the cleaning of the endoscope, it's good to use the machine. But for the sampling at the moment, there are no studies available which really use a machine. Um, um, uh, we use a machine when we suck through the liquid through the suction channel, and we connect the endoscope to the light source. Then it's really a machine, so the suction machine, which sucks through the liquid. There are other methods which flush and rinse, but this is done with a normal syringe.
Okay, and there is another question. Is there a recent study to show using traditional brush methods opposed to pull-through methods have better cleaning outcomes of the endoscope channels? Is there much difference?
Again, let me read it again. Oh, I have to read that again, showing a traditional. I do not really understand that question because the flush method is already a new method. And in France, it is not. They don't use the brush. They use a friction method. They suck and rinse, suck and rinse, suck and rinse. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Uli, there's a different type. Obviously, the traditional brush we brush down through the channel, but there's a new, I think,
Yeah,
instrument out
there
there.
are
It's so that
there
you pull it through the scope as opposed to
yes, yeah,
push
there
it
are
through.
different kind of brushes available.
Yeah.
And
So
with that you have brushes available which are pulled through, yes. But you
yeah,
can also use that. Yeah.
yeah. So I think they're asking which one is more. Is there any studies there to say the brush is more
There
effective?
was
Yeah.
a study which tested these endoscope brushes or these endoscope pull-through method, and they showed a better outcome with cleaning the endoscope, but not in connection with the microbiological surveillance.
Okay. There's another question there. It's
In German.
German. Yeah.
ich weiß nicht, Okay, there's a question: which kind of liquid we should use in the water bottle? So that is a good question, Sarah. So if you do the microbiological surveillance sampling, then you do not use aqua. You use definitely saline in the water bottle. Yeah.
Okay.
So we usually have nowadays these single-use water bottles, and you can easily connect. Then instead of aqua, you can connect saline. Yeah.
And it's very looks very time consuming, the whole process. Obviously very essential, but how do you
No, so when you calculate the video was not cutted, so it
yeah,
was 3 minutes 40 you
3
need.
minutes, 3
So
minutes,
it's
yeah.
not so
Per-
it is not so time consuming. So
yeah.
and if you are used to that as an endoscopy nurse, then you just do it, I would say, quicker than 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another one there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
It says, if we have a storage cabinet that is short and the endoscopes touch the floor, what are the options for safer storage with small budget? So
Maybe create a snake in the drying cabinet by fixing the insertion tube more in waves and like a snake and not straight. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Wassenberg had things like that in their cabinets where you can
And it's a nice fixation, so you have that like this. And if you put the endoscope, yeah, if it's a drying cabinet, then they really dry it. Even you have it like in a that line, yeah.
Yeah. And if the anonymous attendee, if they wanted to email us, we could send pictures of the things, because we had some. Definitely, I have pictures of those cabinets I could send on.
Uli, what's your opinion about testing from loan of repaired scopes?
Yeah, that is a big discussion. And yeah, the question is, if you get a loan endoscope and the loan endoscope has the same architecture and the same channels your endoscopes you have in your department, then that is just my personal point of view. I don't see any necessity really to do the testing of each loan endoscope which comes into my department, because I have a validated cycle, and I expect that the validated cycle is working for all my endoscopes, including my loan endoscopes. I can do a time-by-time testing, and I should also include the loan endoscopes from time to time into the microbiological surveillance. But from my personal point of view, if I have a validated system, I don't see the necessity. And if the endoscope is the same I send in, then I don't see it. I should definitely clean the endoscope properly and reprocess it properly before I use it. I think that is much, much more important than the microbiological surveillance, because the endoscope saw a lot of different departments, saw a lot of different washer disinfectors and process chemicals, and you never know who reprocessed the endoscope before. So you really have to focus that you clean the endoscope when you get it manually, really, and then put it into the washer disinfector. I think that is much, much more important than microbiological surveillance.
Yeah.
If I have a validated cycle. Yeah.
Okay. I think
Any
we have
more
no more questions.
Good. Perfect.
Good. Very good. Very good. So I think we'll finish off. We've two just slides to inform people of our, obviously, the SGINA and ESGE days 2026 is in Milan, Italy, from the 14th to the 16th of May 2026. It's a 3-day nurses program with lectures, free papers, posters, hands-on training, live endoscopy, and obviously it would be great if somebody wants to submit abstracts. The closing days is the 25th of November, and if you do submit abstracts, we'll sponsor you to attend. And then the upcoming webinars, we have 2 webinars. The next one's the 27th of November. It's endoscopic vacuum therapy in conjunction with Boston Scientific. And on the 11th of December, we have automated systems for endoscope cleaning with Pentax Medical. That's great. Thank you to all our attendees. Thank you to our 2 speakers. They were very, very interesting talks again. Obviously, a lot to take from them. And obviously, thank you to David, our IT help, and Hilda, my co-host. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely evening. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.